The Case of the Lost Stradivarius. A Nancy Drew fan fiction mini-mystery. Chapter 1, The Cold Christmas Call. The telephone's insistent ring shattered the quiet afternoon in the Drew household. Nancy Drew, perched on the window seat with a well-worn copy of Sherlock Holmes, sighed and reached for the receiver. Outside, frost traced delicate patterns across the glass like ghostly fingerprints on a crime scene. "Hello?" Nancy answered. "Nancy, darling, it's Beatrice Thornton. You simply must come. It's a disaster, a complete catastrophe." Beatrice's usually melodious soprano was ragged with panic. Nancy straightened. Beatrice Thornton was no ordinary musician. She was the rising star of the River Heights Symphony, a violinist whose performances stir audiences to tears. For her to sound afraid was alarming. "What happened?" Nancy asked gently. "My Stradivarius. It's gone. Vanished. Tonight is the premiere of my new concerto. I'm ruined." Nancy's heart caught in her throat. A Stradivarius was more than an instrument, it was history carved in wood. Priceless. Irreplaceable. And essential to Beatrice's performance. "I'll be right there," Nancy assured her. Minutes later, she was behind the wheel of her blue roadster, the engine purring like a watchful panther. Snowflakes streaked past the windshield as she headed toward the city skyline. The streets pulsed with the roar of traffic, the distant wail of a siren, and the muted strains of music from apartment windows. River Heights' small-town charm faded as the world became sharper, louder, more dangerous. Beatrice met her at the door of her opulent apartment, hair disheveled, eyes red-rimmed. "Oh, Nancy, thank goodness. I don't know what to do," she cried, wringing trembling hands. "Show me where it happened," Nancy said. Inside the music room, sunlight poured through tall windows, illuminating walls lined with violin cases, sheet music, and framed photographs of Beatrice shaking hands with famed conductors. A grand piano gleamed at the room's center. But Nancy's eyes went directly to a velvet-lined case on a table, empty. "I left it here this morning," Beatrice whispered. "I went out for lunch with my agent, and when I returned, it was gone." Nancy examined the room with a trained investigator's gaze. Windows locked. Door undisturbed. No sign of forced entry. But something was off, wrong. "Who else has access to the apartment?" Nancy asked. Beatrice hesitated. "Mrs. Gable, my housekeeper. But she's been with me for years. I trust her completely." Nancy inhaled. A faint scent hung in the air, floral, powdery, elegant. "What perfume do you wear, Beatrice?" "Gardenia," Beatrice replied. "But I haven't worn any today." "Interesting. No forced entry, familiar access, a perfume Beatrice didn't wear today, and a missing violin with no trace of struggle. The thief, Nancy realized, might not be a stranger." Chapter 2, The Cast of Suspects. Nancy began with the neighbors. Crimes involving priceless art rarely just happened. Someone had planned this. Mr. Henderson, the elderly man across the hall, blinked owlishly from behind spectacles. "I heard nothing," he said. "But my hearing, well," he gestured vaguely. The man might not hear a marching band in his living room. Miss Vivian Dubois, a flamboyant opera singer upstairs, opened her door dramatically, as though she were stepping onto a stage. "She doesn't deserve that Stradivarius," Vivian sneered. "Some of us trained in Europe. Some of us clawed our way to the top." Her jealousy dripped like venom. Mr. Sterling, Beatrice's agent, was slick, polished, and far too composed for someone whose client's instrument had just vanished. "We'll recover it," he said breezily. "The show must go on." His smile didn't reach his eyes, and his handshake was clammy. Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper, wrung her hands. "I noticed a strange man in the hallway earlier this week," she whispered. "Lurking." Fear radiated from her, but whether for Beatrice's safety or her own, Nancy couldn't yet tell. Each suspect had motive. Jealousy. Greed. Opportunity. Familiar access. Nancy jotted notes. A scent of gardenia. No forced entry. Trusted access. A lurking stranger. The picture was forming. Not a random theft. An orchestrated one. Chapter 3, The Gardenia Clue. Nancy returned to the music room. There, she spotted it, a faint smudge on the velvet lining of the empty case. Cosmetic powder. Not dust. Something used to reduce fingerprints. The thief wore gloves. She carefully collected the residue and slipped it into an evidence envelope. At the nearby perfumery, she described the scent. Gardenia Mystique, the perfumer confirmed. Exclusive. We only sell a few bottles a month. Mostly to performers, actually. He flipped through a ledger. Yes. Vivienne Dubois purchased one last week. It was a tempting conclusion, a jealous rival with matching perfume, inflammatory comments, and perfect access to the music world. But something didn't sit right. Vivienne was dramatic, temperamental, vain, but was she clever enough to stage a theft that left no trace? Nancy stored the doubt. Doubt, she knew, was as valuable as a clue. Chapter 4, A Digital Trail. Nancy contacted her friend George Fain, whose computer skills rivaled the FBI's. If someone's trying to sell a Stradivarius, George said, typing furiously, they're either stupid or cocky enough to think they won't get caught. Hours later, George froze. I found it. A listing on a private auction site. No photos, only coded language, Italian masterpiece, 17th century, pristine tone. Enough to identify it to the right buyer. Nancy felt the pulse of the mystery quicken. There would be a limited window to stop the transaction. She called the police, arranged surveillance, and set a trap. Chapter 5, The Silent Auction. The warehouse was cavernous and dimly lit, filled with crates stenciled with foreign customs markings. The silence was eerie, the kind that seemed to swallow sound rather than produce it. Nancy watched from the shadows with Lieutenant Avery of the River Heights Police Department. At precisely 7 o'clock, a figure slipped inside, wig, sunglasses, long coat. Miss Dubois. She moved with purpose to a locked crate, produced a key, and revealed the Stradivarius. The police emerged from the shadows. Vivienne Dubois, you're under arrest for possession of stolen property, Avery announced. But Nancy noticed something. Vivienne's hands shook. Not with guilt, with confusion. This wasn't my plan, Vivienne stammered. I was told to bring it here. Sterling said. Nancy's eyes widened. Sterling. The slick agent. The too calm reaction. The eagerness for the show to continue, at any cost. A phone confiscation. A digital search. Emails. Contracts. Bank transfers. Sterling had manipulated Vivienne, nudging her jealousy, feeding her insecurities, and persuading her that Beatrice didn't deserve her fame, all while planning to profit from the theft. Vivienne was guilty, but she was also a pawn. Chapter 6, The Twist. Back at Beatrice's apartment, Nancy returned the Stradivarius. As she placed it in the case, she felt something beneath the lining. A hidden envelope. In Mrs. Gable's handwriting. I took it to protect her. Sterling planned to steal it. Vivienne was misled. I had to hide it until someone could help. Trust no one but Nancy. Nancy's breath caught. The theft had been staged twice, first by Sterling and Vivienne, and then by Mrs. Gable, who feared Beatrice would be destroyed by the scandal. 3 culprits. 3 motives. 1 violin. And Nancy drew in the center of the web. Chapter 7, Resolution. The confrontation was tense but necessary. Vivienne confessed through tears. Jealousy had clouded her judgment. Sterling denied everything until the digital evidence crushed him. Mrs. Gable admitted to the protective theft, trembling but relieved. The police sorted the charges, leniency for Vivienne and Mrs. Gable, full prosecution for Sterling. That night, at the sold-out concert hall, Beatrice's bow touched the strings. The first note was a fragile whisper, then it soared, triumphant, defiant, alive. Nancy sat among the audience, heart full. Justice wasn't always tidy. Nor were people. But the truth, like music, had a way of rising. Chapter 8, Epilogue. Back home in River Heights, Nancy curled once more into her window seat. The frost remained on the glass. Her book lay open where she'd left it. But she didn't read. Some mysteries you think about long after they're solved. Because sometimes the thief is jealous. Sometimes greedy. And sometimes, oddly, noble. And somewhere out there, another phone would ring. Nancy would answer. Every time.